And we're starting it off with a question that I thought might have been solved behind the scenes. Thought we might have already had an answer, it's just we didn't have the answer. You know what I mean? There already was an answer, we just didn't know it. Why hasn't Seth Jarvis gotten his deal done yet? I'm going to take you back a little bit here to June 26th. ESPN was putting out their expectations for free agency in the NHL. And this is what they wrote about the Carolina Hurricanes, June 26th. What they should do. Carolina's offseason program hinges on one contract getting done, and it's for Jarvis. The pending restricted free agent has vastly outperformed his expiring entry-level deal and will be in line for a well-deserved pay raise. New GM Eric Tulsky should be zeroed in on how to keep Jarvis happy with the Hurricanes for years to come. Until Tulsky knows what Jarvis's number is, it'll be difficult for Carolina to tap into the free agent market. End of clip there. Well, they haven't got it done yet. They've made a whole bunch of free agency deals, both letting players walk and bringing players back, or not back, but bringing new players in. They've brought a player back. Are we counting Chatty? Is that what we're doing? All right, that one was, I believe, already done by the 26th. But I did think, and I had said this on air, that I thought, like, behind closed doors, under the table, not under the table because it was completely legal to be talking with them, I thought perhaps the Canes and Jarvis, or more importantly, the Canes front office and Jarvis's representation had already come to an agreement on what they were going to sign, but in the interest of having an information advantage over whoever you're negotiating with for free agents, right, because only you would know how much cap space you have available, because only you would know how much of that is going to Seth Jarvis, I thought maybe they would go like, hey, we agree on it. Let's just not put ink to paper until we go out here and do everything else in free agency. Well, the thing is, they went out and did everything else in free agency, and they still haven't gotten the Seth Jarvis deal done. So now I'm going, well, why not? And it's interesting because, right, obviously, before the show, we talk about all this stuff in the office, and Dennis brought up, he's like, well, now I think they have to wait for the Necas domino to fall so they know how much is going to be going to Jarvis, and I agree that's where they are, right?
Yeah, there's the salary cap actually will dictate so much of this because Carolina's looking at about, I know like sites like Puckpedia are saying it's like 11.6, but really it's more like $13 million in cap space. Well, depending on what you do with Martin Necas, if Martin Necas is making if Martin Necas is making, let's say, $5.5 million off of arbitration or $5 million bucks, and you're trying to sign Jarvis to $8 million bucks a year, well, you still have Jack Drury, who's on arbitration right now. You just might not have the room.
I completely agree with that.
So, yeah, the Necas domino has to fall first.
So now they have to wait for it, but what that tells me is what I was anticipating happening didn't. They didn't have the Seth, like, think of it like a puzzle, right? They didn't have the Seth Jarvis piece in place, and then they were going to try to fill everything in around it. They were building things and hoping the Seth Jarvis piece would fit, and now that it might not how they originally anticipated, they have to wait for the rest of the puzzle to fill in. The other side of this is how much of their offseason, meaning the best laid plans, right, the best intentioned plans, were centered around Jake Gensel accepting that 8-for-8 deal.
A lot of it.
It seems like the moment Jake Gensel said, actually, I know I said 8-for-8 will get it done. Now that it's close enough to free agency, I want to test the market, and a little birdie told me Tampa might be interested. The moment that he dropped that metaphorical explosion on this offseason, all of the best laid plans got completely torn up.
And don't forget the almost trade of Martin Necas to Columbus.
A couple almost trades, yeah. I'd assume. It seems like the Canes might be on their like 8th plan, maybe 25th plan. I don't know. Maybe I'm being generous. Maybe they're making it up on the fly, right? Started with the quarterback in the huddle going like, all right, everybody run Ranger on 3, Ranger on 3. Now they're going like looking at wide receivers going, you run a post, you here, look at this, like you're drawing it up in the dirt. They're just trying to figure it out as it goes along. And that makes me nervous when it comes to figuring it out as it goes along. And the thing that you're figuring out is the future of Seth Jarvis with the Carolina Hurricanes. Right? Because, yes, like, Seth isn't going anywhere, right? Jarvie, he really can't go anywhere. He could sign an offer sheet, and then the Canes would match it, and he would stay with the Canes on whatever that the terms are. There could be a bridge deal. Like, there are ways to ensure that he will stay in Carolina, but then you're not the ones making the plans, right? If somebody else signs him to an offer sheet, you are then at the beck and call. You are at the whims of whatever that term sheet is. Right? Because what happens if this goes on? Martin Necas goes to arbitration, gets a certain amount of money, maybe slightly more than you were anticipating. Seth Jarvis signs an offer sheet, more money, slightly more than you were anticipating. And the cap space isn't there. Now rock meets hard place, and Jack Drury might be caught in the crosshairs, and who knows what else is going to happen. There's something to be said for, and this is why getting the Slavin deal done early. This is why you want anyone to be on a long-term contract that you care about as a core of your franchise, because then you can build around it, and can we afford Roslovic? Can we afford a one-year deal for Robinson? Can we afford an extra $500,000 for Jordan Martinook? Right? If you had the Seth Jarvis deal done already, all of those decisions are made knowing you have to work around Seth Jarvis. The same way your entire free agency was done knowing you have to build around the deal that Slavin signed, and even in years past, right? The deal that you have Aho on, the deal that you have Svech on, those you have to build around. I don't like the idea of Seth Jarvis being the piece that's building around all of these $2 and $3 million per year free agency contracts. I like the idea when all your depth pieces and their contracts are fitting in the salary cap around your core. I mean, ESPN said it on June 26th. Carolina's offseason program hinges on one contract getting done, and it's for Jarvis. There's essentially two contracts that haven't gotten done. Jarvis and Drury. It's a reverse order, right? We got one priority. Let's save it for last after we do everything else. Seems like a weird way to go about it. Not to mention, and this is, GM shouldn't think this way, but I'll throw it out there because we're media and we can think about it from every angle. Jarvis is good for business, man. Jarvis is good for selling jerseys. Jarvis is good for building hype. Jarvis is good for social media. Jarvis is a guy that, I have no idea why this popped into my head. Do you remember there was a show way back in the day called Making the Band?
Yes.
I have no idea why I remember this, but there was the choreographer was screaming at them when they were essentially it was like American Idol, but you were making like a boy band. And I just remember the choreographer screaming at the people making the decisions, going, "He's the only movement I have." Because they were going to cut a guy who was a good dancer, but maybe not as good a singer as everybody else. And I just kind of envisioned the marketing department going like, he's the personality I have. We need the social media of Seth Jarvis. Do not mess this up. Sure, everyone else is good at hockey. He is too. But he's the only movement we have. Give Seth Jarvis a deal. That's where I'm sitting on. Make sure he wants to be a Cane for a long time. You don't have to worry about him getting old. Do you know why? Because even a long-term deal, he's still going to be young at the end of it. That's an important part here. We'll give him a bridge deal. Great. So that way, when you get to a long-term deal, he'll be old at the end of it. Give him the long-term deal when he's young at the end of it.
Even if you did a 2-year bridge deal and an 8-year deal, he's still only going to be 32 years old.
32, 33. Credit to you for on-air math.
Yep.